Dear audience, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Nordic Circular Summit 2023, and we will talk about textiles today as a part of the Nordic Circular Summit. Some of you are in Reykjavik in Iceland and some of you are online, and we will take the opportunity to thank our sponsors as well. Resource is talking today about transforming textiles, innovation, sustainability and consumptions, and we are co-hosting this together with RISE. We are one of the 17 strategic innovation programs in Sweden, and we are funded by 3 governmental organizations, Formas, Energimyndigheten and Vinnova. The aim is to use material within the planetary boundaries through innovation and competitiveness. And this is what we are all working for. Today we will talk about the textile industry. This is a huge industry. It's about 4% of the world trade, and about 60 million people is employed in the industry, and that we will have to have in mind that it's a large industry. But the global industry value is estimated on a huge value of US dollars. And in Sweden, and the same will calculate for the rest of Europe, I think, is the normal consumption of textiles is about 14 kilos per person. So that is still a high consumption, which we'll talk about today. We will also discuss a bit about the product life cycle and considerations. This is a quite long life cycle. You might consider textiles being quite an easy product, but still you have a lot of steps in the preparation, the thread, and also the full fabric. So this is the considerations that we will have to take into account. And also, how do we create a sustainable, profitable industry when we are expected to reduce the material consumption at the same time? So these are a few of the topics that we will hear our speakers talk about today.
Det slängs 100 miljoner ton kläder i världen varje år. Det skulle räcka till ett 40 meter tjockt täcke över södra Sverige.
Men problemen är att man har en kortsiktig produktion som är ganska ospecifik. Man gissar på ett års sikt på vad man tror att kunden vill ha nästa sommar.
Hur många av alla plagg som tillverkas i världen används egentligen? Och hur många blir bara hängande i våra garderober? Projektet Favoritgarderoben har utforskat den saken.
Vi brukar titta på cirkulär ekonomi som i 3 dimensioner. Att man tittar på livslängd av saker, hur länge saker håller, nyttjandegrad av saker och återcirkulering då, det vill säga att saker går in i nya nyttjandecykler efter att ha varit använda första gången och så vidare. Men det här med nyttjandegrad är ju väldigt lite utforskat faktiskt.
340 personer fick använda en app och registrera vad de tog på sig varje dag under 100 dagar. Och bland all data som samlades in om preferenser och vanor var det vissa saker som stack ut.
En av de viktigaste sakerna som vi hittade var att man inte vet hur många plagg man har i sin garderob. Av de plagg som användes under den här 100-dagarsperioden så var det nästan 3000 plagg som användes bara en gång. Och det var 23% av alla plagg som loggades under perioden.
Väldigt många har kläder som hänger hemma med en lapp på, fortfarande med prislappen på. Det är det största problemet med textilindustrin. Att det är så billigt att köpa nya grejer så att man knappt behöver använda dem.
Det har länge varit känt att det finns mer effektiva sätt att använda kläder på. En framåtblickande lösning är att prenumerera på kläder istället för att äga dem.
Vi har utforskat cirkulära affärsmodeller i mer än 10 år. Och det är jättemånga sådana som använder vår hyrtjänst. Och sen så vill vi också utforska subscription, alltså prenumeration.
Houdini satte upp fokusgrupper och lät sedan 100 personer välja paket med 4 funktionsplagg.
Då kan man variera lite inom sina 4 plagg och man kan byta efter behov och man kan ha ett, nu ska jag åka skidor, ja, men då går jag och byter till liksom skal och band och något liksom underställ kanske. Jag tror den som bytte flest, liksom det halvåret vi hade det igång helt och hållet, bytte väl säkert så här 17 gånger.
Deltagarna var i stort sett positiva. Houdini kunde konstatera att det skulle vara praktiskt möjligt och nödvändigt att skala upp experimentet för att nå lönsamhet. Men det skulle i sin tur förutsätta att tvätt, reparationer och transporter inte svällde för mycket. Man fick andra resultat också.
Det var 3 personer av de här 100 som liksom spontant sa ja, men nu har jag ju prenumererat på kläder. Då tänkte jag, vad fan har jag en bil för? Kanske inte ska svära. Men liksom sålde sin bil och började använda en bildelningstjänst.
Att jobba cirkulärt är lönsamt. Det är så vi har växt och finns på 20 marknader och har liksom lyckats ta en internationell position. Att ligga i framkant och strunta i om det är ett regelverk som finns på plats eller inte, det har vi tjänat på. Det kan Sverige tjäna på också.
Ytterligare en viktig slutsats av prenumerationsprojektet var att det skulle behövas ett branschgemensamt digitalt system för hanteringen. Och just datahantering och spårbarhet för att kunna återanvända kläder är precis vad man utvecklar i ett annat resursfinansierat projekt.
So here, this is a collect item. So it means that this was just collected from a customer. So there was no faulty problem with it. And they probably washed it since it's white and then attached the NFC and then it's good to go.
So we wanted to look into our collect garments, which are garments that customers can bring that have worn and no longer want to use. So kind of like our general waste in garment form.
Själva avsikten var att se om det gick att reparera och återförsälja något av allt det här. Och man kom fram till 2 saker. Dels att det hela måste ske i flera steg och dessutom att man behövde partners. Fujitex skulle fixa hanteringen och Trace hade systemet för att hålla ordning på alltihop.
So now you see that the first level of sorting has been done. Now what happens in the physical flow is they will take the garment, they will attach an NFC tag on it, and now the repair data that they will, sort of the kind of repair that they want to do on the garment has to also be reflected in the NFC, right?
Now, for the linear production model and a linear consumption model, you have got multiple different systems existing like ERP, PLM, which collects a lot of this data. You do not have any such system available on the post-sales side, which is for repair, reuse, re-commerce and retake. And that is where the big deficiency lies and which is what our platform now fills in.
Resultatet blir alltså ett chip som innehåller hela plaggets historia, komplett med vilka slags textilfibrer som används vid tillverkning och vilka reparationer som har gjorts. Oerhörda mängder data, men nödvändigt om man vill ställa om till en cirkulär ekonomi.
Without data you cannot do this. We all are talking about data-driven decision making. This just further adds to that.
The next thing that we're going to do is sell the garments online. Like the garments will flow into the stores and then flow to new homes. And then we just see the numbers and the cash rolling in.
Ideally, I think we should set the goal to be 1 million garments repaired using this solution, because that is where the impact comes in from. Because if we do that 1 million in Sweden, that becomes an example for maybe the whole of Europe to take and then the whole world to take it on.
Man måste också tänka på att det här är en stor industri. Den sysselsätter oerhört många människor och då måste vi också göra omställningen i en industriell skala för att det verkligen ska bli den påverkan vi vill ha. And now we welcome Mr. Raul Carlson, a senior researcher at RISE, and he is the newly appointed chairman of the new standardization group in Europe for circular economy. Welcome, Raul.
Thank you. And I think I'll take over the screen immediately and start presenting. So let's see, and that starts working, and I managed to push the right buttons. Thank you. That's great. So I'm going to talk about the quality infrastructure of the circular economy with emphasis on textiles. So that means that I give you an overview picture of what the quality infrastructure is, and then about particularly the textile part. So of course, everybody wonders, do I do a circular economy? Because circular economy is such a big thing, we start understanding that it's important, we cannot use more resources. Everybody asks themselves that. So We can dance that when we buy a specific thing, like clothes. We call them solutions in the international standardization. We want to be dressed, so we need a solution to that. So we buy something. Is it circular? And we want to know that. We want to understand how to measure it. And we can also look at it from a more the total system perspective. Is our consumption in general circular? Or we can look at it from textile sector or from EU sector, national sector, national perspective. So different ways to look at am I doing a circular economy as an individual and or whatever type of system I'm in. And when we start doing these things, when they ask us these things, we all immediately come into questions. What do you mean with solution? What do you mean with resource use? Or what even do you mean with resource or system? All these terms, we need them in order to understand our circular economy, but we need to actually get by this confusion of terminology before we can come into the questions and work with them. Usually we just get stuck in terminology. So what we do in standardization is to fix this. We try to really put time on getting the vocabularies correct. And this is the first one that I'm going to show you on what is happening. It's standard being released this year, 2023, and it's also had a Swedish secretariat, which means that the entire world have worked on putting together the terminology together, but we had a secretariat in Sweden. And opening this up, I'm just going to show you what they look like, because people don't tend to read standards for fun, even if this is pretty fun if you're into a subject and you want to know how that subject looks like more in detail. So here is just coming into terms and definition. Overview, the outline, what type of definitions are in there, and directly into circular economy, life cycle assessment, traceability. It's all types of terminology related to these. And then jumping straight into circular economy, we see that the biological cycle is important for textile, but also the definition of circular economy that is defined in another technical committee, which defines a general circular economy, where we also spend a lot of time from Swedish point of view. But this is a standard that sorts out things that we can wonder about in circular economy in general. So coming from there to why do we need these things? What do we use them for? This vertical arrow, I've drawn it to represent the consistency. If you measure on an individual level how you consume, and you also want to measure it so it actually makes the meaning on the national scale or global scale, you have to have defined your mathematics or the way to calculate things. But also, if you're another perspective is the horizontal perspective, where I have drawn this straight arrow, which is the linear economy. We start with resources. We produce, for example, threads. We manufacture clothes. We sell them. We put them out on the market. People use them. We maintain them if we are nice to them, fix them and so. And then eventually we throw them away. They are losses. That was simple because everybody knew exactly what they could expect from the previous stage. Especially in the end, it's waste. We just throw it on the waste pile or burn it up. But when you come into a circular economy, you want to do more. You want to recycle, so you have to be in the right recycling business. You want to produce no resources, so you want to be in the resource business. And you also want to know when you have made these resources, someone really want to have them. So the entire recycling business is a really important terminology domain, but not only terminology, but also very much about standardizing qualities. And the same when you come into the next level, refurbishing, remanufacturing, you have pieces of clothes in this case, or other type of textile, and you want to put together new products. What should they look like, this reused component, so you can actually make something new, not downgraded, but actually something that is useful out there. And the same, of course, when it comes to keeping things for a long time. How should you make clothes that actually can extend for a long time, so people keep using them maybe many, many years rather than just for this season and then they are outdated. So here we need to know that everything fit together, so the entire society fit together to rather than just taking resources, throw them away, to make them fit into really long cycles is a difficulty in themselves. So how do we make it compatible and consistent throughout the life cycles? And then we have already the entire system that is needed, the high infrastructure for it, which is called the quality infrastructure. And it says that, okay, laws in Sweden, they are not only laws someone made up with their own language. They have to be based on some kind of standardized language, some type of standardized metrology. So you actually, when you say a meter, you really, everybody else agrees that that is a meter. And also, who checks that that meter you're checking with is actually a meter in a more general level? You have to have accredited bodies. So that is how the core of the national quality structure, but also on the international level. So when you write standards for Europe, or when you write standards for international standardization bodies, the whole idea is that everybody should have these things the same. It's possible to make a meter in Sweden, and it's actually a meter also somewhere in Africa or somewhere in South America. So everybody should agree. But except for that, one have to have this kind of policing works, the verification, certification, calibration, checking so that everything's actually the way they say. And when you can know that someone impartial check things, then you can trust enterprises when they export, when they innovate, when they do quality statements, or when they do quality assurance, efficiency, etc. And that means that they protect us citizens, so we know that we buy what we wanted to have, and enterprises in themselves can have these circular loops of resources because they can trust each other on quality. So this is a core aspect of things. And just jumping off, sorry about jumping away from textile, but the battery directive is a little bit further ahead before, and the textile is coming soon. But here we look at one small part of the battery passport requirement. It says that it shall be based on open standards and be an interoperable format, transferable through an open interoperable data exchange network. So they really think about standards is the thing that makes the world fit together and make it run like a clockwork. So this is just one way of recognizing this quality infrastructure and what happens precisely in regulations. Around here is the standard. Another part of this is the new regulations on green claims, that any information you give to someone else can be not only nice, but it should also be true. So that you have a third-party conformity assessment body that verifies statements made that make a difference on these ethical levels. So that is yet another level of this, that you have a verification body ensuring statements. Coming then back to what happens on the standardization part, what has been going on since 2019 now is the international standardization of circular economy. And then here you see the 3 standards that will be released in the first half of 2024, maybe even February if everything goes well. And that means that then we will have a terminology on a global scale. We have guidance on business models and value networks, and also ways to measure the key indicators to measure circularity. And that will really make a big leap forward on circularity. Coming then back into what is happening on textiles level, we have this, I showed you already this document and this standard that on vocabulary, but there's also new standards coming up on precisely the textile sector, and that is categorization of and requirements on non-virgin input materials. So if you do textiles, so how do you categorize these that are non-virgin? So that is the circular ones. What are actually circular? And then also on the circular economy of textile products is general principles and guidance, just talking about should you think about circular economy and textiles. And design for circularity, how do you produce circular textile products? So all these ones will be developed together with ISO and SEM, so that you really get an international level of all this standardization. And the one that I will start leading, we will begin working in end of November, is more general again, to really set the overall infrastructure and framework for European standardization, for European circular economy. And starting from bottom up, we talk about circular procurement, so we really can give guidance on what that is, circular business models, what is extended producer responsibility, what to share between different stakeholders throughout the circular economy, and also the general framework and terminology. And these ones will be fit into the European regulations to really support all the new regulations coming on that domain. So that's it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Raul, for your presentation. I mean, we tried to clarify the definitions within the circular economy, and we found hundreds of different definitions. What do you think will be the most challenging within this work?
I expect it to be difficult with the system boundaries around value networks, and so I think that will be difficult because different sectors will have become they will consider themselves as losers, and others will consider themselves as winners in that situation. And this is something I really have to think about negotiation parts and how to make it more clear. The whole boundary definition. We had these discussions also in life cycle assessment when that was being done earlier in the product environmental footprint. So I think that will be a challenge.
And what about the timing for this? I mean, the industry is waiting for this to happen and to be able to measure and compare different things. What about the timing for this? What do you think? I realize you haven't started the work yet, but it's your best guess.
Yeah, 3 years is the best guess for the most normative standards, the ones that we really need to reach consensus. I know that earlier people have had experiences from long time. It's really never-ending discussions. But both ISO and CEN have put there's like a deadline, 3 years. Otherwise, you will have to reach out with the document with lower consensus level, with much less value for the entire regulation and business area.
And that sounds good. So that will be maybe 26 or 27 in best case.
Precisely so. Yes. Yeah. And I'd say that is the case we will run to. We will set these deadlines and follow them. Yes.
Yeah. Great. Thank you very much, Raul. Welcome back. For the next segment, we welcome Åsa, who is the company representative today, and you are the manager of OnceMore. Welcome, Åsa Degerman.
Thank you very much. Yes, as Cecilia said, I work for Södra, which is a Swedish forest industry company, and we have one of a kind innovation called OnceMore, which I will talk about today. And this is about how we can transform an industry and make circularity happen. So OnceMore is the world's first open recycling system, the closing the loop for blended textile waste. Today, less than 1% of textile is actually recycled, and with OnceMore, we have been able to close the gap for both cotton and polyester. And I will talk about this more in detail. This is the new circular textile value chain. So we are just in the beginning. Södra and OnceMore, we are just in the beginning of the value chain. So we are the ones that make the dissolving pulp out from renewable wood. And since 4 years, we are blending it together with textile waste. Today, we have a composition of 80% renewable wood and 20% textile waste in our dissolving pulp. The pulp goes further in the value chain into the fiber maker. We have in the world a fiber making company called Lensing, Södra, etc. And then when the fiber are done, they become yarn, and the yarn will then at the next step become fabric, and then it will become design item like I have today on me, a OnceMore shirt, and then it will come out to the consumer. So this is where we change the textile value chain by actually, when it's become a waste, it will go back into the loop and will be recycled and become new pulp. What is the existing infrastructure for textile recycling? I think for many years we have actually been sorting textile waste and textile for primarily becoming a second-hand item that goes out to the different NGOs, etc., that collect and sort, and then they sell in stores. And we in EU, we collect 2.5 million tons per year in terms of textile waste. and less than 1% of this 2.5 million is actually fiber-to-fiber recycled. We have a new legislation and directive coming up. We have the Waste Framework Directive coming up in the EU by 1st of January 2025. And that will force us to start to collect textile waste separately. And it will also implement an extended producer responsibility. So that means that by 2030 we could actually have 7.5 or 8 million tons of textile waste every year. And this we have a source from the McKinsey report coming out earlier this year. But what we actually need to do is that we need to find deposition for all textile waste which we sort and collect. And today the technique is not really there. Once more, we can sort and recycle blended textile waste, mainly bright colors, whitish, and without any contamination like elastan, etc. But this is what we are aiming to change in the future, and we are heavily now working on developing this new technique for actually taking on more complex materials, more colors, and also elastan. In general, our clothes that we wear has an average of 3 to 5% of elastan, which is the stretchy part of a textile product. We think that design for circularity is needed to close the gaps in order to close the loop. So we need to work with designers, with the system, with the whole textile value chain to educate and close the gaps in terms of awareness and information. And in the future, hopefully we can close the loop for all this textile waste. A little bit more detail about the OnceMore process. It is a confidential, highly secret process that we have developed, and we are located in southern part of Sweden in Mörrum. We are using our existing mill where we already today produce paper pulp and textile pulp, i.e. dissolving wood pulp. So we take from our owners. Södra is owned by 52,000 families that owns forests. So we take renewable wood, mainly birch, as you see on the picture here. And then we mix it together with textile wastes. We are recycling the concept of actually doing paper pulp and dissolving pulp by the cellulosic. So we have in wood we have cellulosic, but also in the textile waste we have cellulosic. So we combine this in OnceMore. And we are now developing a new large-scale plant. We plan to have it up and running in Mörrum by 2027, and that we can take 50,000 tons of textile waste every year. Right now we are at a level of 2,000 tons, so it's a big step. But it's also a big step towards taking on more complex material, as we will start to collect household waste by 2025. We will actually need to be able to recycle what we have in our closet and wardrobe. And then that dissolving pulp with recycled content, old textile, goes on further in the system into fiber producers. And viscose and lyocell is made out of the OnceMore dissolving pulp. So let's kick the habit of textile waste and start to do textile recycling. Thank you.
Thank you, Åsa. And this is, really groundbreaking that we are now able to close the loop. How many times can you actually recycle? If we, for example, take your blouse, can it go back to the circularity loop and be recycled again?
Yeah, viscose, we can take on viscose up to 5%.
Okay.
Mainly, as I mentioned, mainly polyester and cotton. So we have, but the viscose can be recycled, but has not as high yield as cotton has. But some parts will be recycled.
Yeah, and that's really, really good news. Thank you very much for your presentation. And now we will move on to the next presentation made by Ann-Charlotte Mellquist, a fellow researcher at RISE, who did a project for Resource about the favorite closet. Welcome, Ann-Charlotte.
Thank you. So let me share my screen. This is a project about how much you do or do not use your wardrobe and why. The background to this is, of course, that as we all know, the production phase is the phase in the life cycle of a garment that causes most of the environmental impact, 80% according to an earlier study from Sweden. There is also another scientific background to this project, and it's illustrated here with the 3 dimensions of product circularity that we have engaged a lot with in my research team at RISE. There are 3 dimensions: endurance, recirculation, utilization. And utilization is actually the one dimension of those 3 that has been the least researched so far. So therefore, we wanted to look at and investigate the potential for higher utilization of garments. And therefore, we started this project. So it has been run by RISE together with Asket, Filippa K, and Houdini Sportswear, 3 Swedish brands, and it has been funded by Resource. And we ran it during 2 years, from September 2021 to August 2023. I will tell you something about the method that we used in this study. So first of all, we set up a garment wear study. So we developed a smartphone app for registration of garments. And during the spring of 2022, 340 people registered their garment wear every day for a 100-day period. And before starting this registration period, the users were also asked to estimate the total number of garments per garment category in their wardrobe in a Google Sheet survey. And the users here, we recruited them from the customer clubs of the 3 brands in the project. So from Asket, Filippa K, and Houdini's customer clubs. As I mentioned, the garments were registered based on garment category, but it was also registered based on brand, purchase price, and if they had been purchased second-hand or new. So this was the sort of quantitative part of the study that we did. In addition to that, we used focus groups and interviews as an additional method to more understand the deep dive into the questions about why you do certain choices, both when shopping garments, but also when choosing garments in the morning. So this was the qualitative part, and we did 4 focus group sessions during the autumn of 2022, and in total 11 users from the study took part in these. We also added another 4 interviews with people working in the garment and wardrobe coaching, with wardrobe coaching. And together that sort of made us be able to gather much more information about the reasoning behind decisions when it comes to garment and garment usage. And we also did 2 workshops with the full project group, one of them to analyze the results from the user study, and another one to develop ideas around how we could increase utilization and what type of business models that could enable that. So with these methods, I will now present some of the results here from the study, some of the findings that we found. And you will see to the left in the pictures, you will see the findings that I will talk about, and to the right, you will see some of the proofs for these findings or results. So the proofs that are within squares that you see now, they are from the quantitative usage study, and there will also be some quotes which are from the focus groups interviews. So that's sort of it's just a way of illustrating types of proofs for these findings. So the first finding that we found really interesting is about wardrobe size. And it's really difficult to keep track of wardrobe size in general. And people also seem to underestimate the size of their wardrobe. And how could we say that? Well, we could say that because a very high number of the respondents in the study, they actually logged more garments used over the 100-day period than what they had registered in their wardrobe as total number of garments per category. And this also persisted actually after a second inventory that we did, just to make sure that we hadn't made any wrong, that there weren't any errors in the first one. So it's obviously or apparently very difficult to keep track of the number of garments in your wardrobe. It was also a fact that the app itself helped people understand their usage patterns. So the app was some kind of enabler of more understanding about the size of the wardrobe and what you use it. And then there was also, especially from the qualitative part with the focus groups, there was an indication that many people want to have a smaller, more easy to wear and match and pick wardrobe. There was a feeling that it's a lot of hassle to have a lot of to have a lot of clothes that you have to take care of, but also that you have to choose between every day. So this was about wardrobe size. The second theme here is cost per wear. So the cost per wear, we could say after this study, is less related to purchase price and more to number of wears. And how can we say that? Well, because over this 100-day period, for example, you can see that the cost per wear line, the pink line to the right, has a lot less variance over this time than the purchase price, which is the green line. And of course, this is only over 100-day period. So the more you stretch out this period, the stronger this result will be. And when this is the case, of course, the implication is that long-lasting and versatile garments with high quality and possibly higher purchase price could actually lead to decreased cost compared to several cheaper garments filling the same function. So if you look more at cost per wear and total cost of ownership, instead of looking too much at just the purchase price, it will actually give another picture of what it costs to have garments and to wear garments. The third part here is garment usage. So what could we say there? Well, first of all, that there is huge inefficiency in the use of garments, of course. Many garments were not used at all, but many garments were also used very seldom. So in the study itself, we could see that over 3,000 garments, or 23% of the total number of garments, were only used one time over this 100-day period, for example. And many more garments were used just 2 or 3 times. We could also say that usage patterns differ between categories. So, for example, jeans and jackets were used much more than other types of categories of clothing. Another interesting finding was that usage rates increase with purchase price, which is sort of interesting then also in line with the discussion of cost per wear, and that the usage pattern is quite different between men and women. Men own less garments and they have higher usage rates than women on average. fourth findings category about garment features. So what is it then that stand out for those garments that actually become favorite garments or garments at its best? Comfortability and good fit. Those two were really highlighted by most of our users. High functionality, easy to match, good quality as well. And then there were also some people in the group that thought that adjustable and flexible garments and social code and belonging were important, as well as something like nice, pretty, or trendy. Garments should build self-esteem was also mentioned. But comfortable and good fit was really the most important features here for garments that become favorites. So finally, I have just 2 slides here to sort of sum up what this then says about what we could say after this study to brands and to clothing companies that want to do something about raising or increasing utilization of garments. If you look first at, for example, how garments can be presented, both physically in the shop but also online, of course, I think we could conclude that reduced number of garments would help here, because many people think it's difficult to choose among too many, and it's difficult to be more sort of minimalistic in your choices if there is too much to choose from. There's also, of course, an aspect of if you could price in sustainability things, that would, of course, be very good. But if that is not done, and that's not the case today, at least you can think of this cost per wear or total cost of ownership, which are really important then as an alternative to just looking at purchase price. And of course, you should avoid more for less type of offers as well. And the last thing then, what could we say about business models? Well, we actually had an additional survey at the end as well of the project where we checked what business models would be most attractive for customers. And those two that sort of stuck out there and became top of mind was both repair and tailoring services, but also brand-specific second-hand. Those two were those most attractive, that felt most attractive to end users. So there is some opportunity here for companies that want to be part of improving and increasing utilization to look at these type of business models and explore them more. And then, of course, advisory service was also mentioned, as well as app solutions. So advisory services and app solutions could have both for choosing garments that would actually become favorites, but also for wardrobe clearing and recirculation, and that many people thought were difficult. So different types of support of that was also mentioned. Long warranty periods would be attractive for many, and some people mentioned community and inclusion to build trustworthiness among customers. So those are the sort of summary of the projects when it comes to suggested business models for high utilization of garments. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ann-Charlotte, for the interesting presentation about the research project. What do you think would be the next step? What would you like to expand to?
It would be really interesting to do a similar usage study, but with another type of end user group. So, for example, with more, maybe based on a customer club from another brand. So more of an average end user, since these 3 brands that we worked with here, they're quite high end and quite good quality and expensive clothing. So I think it would be interesting with people who normally buy cheaper clothes and to compare those results with what we got here.
And you mean the normal kind of more fast fashion customer who buys 35 to 50 items a year? Is that the kind of target group
Yes.
you would like to expand to?
Yeah, exactly. That would be really interesting, I think, to do that comparison.
That would be a really interesting project. Thank you very much, Ann-Charlotte.
Thank you.
part of the program, we welcome Emma Enebog, a fellow colleague of mine at RISE and a researcher within circular economy, but also to give an outlook on future trends in the textile and fashion industry. Welcome, Emma.
Thank you so much. And then I will talk a little bit about the future. So hello, my name is Emma. I'm a project manager within circular economy and a special focus on textiles. And I'm also involved in an EU project called CISOTAC, where we actually look into the future with the scenario building, the future textile management system within EU in 2035. So we're not finished yet, but I will talk a little bit of our findings so far, but also some trends going forward. So the EU strategy has set out the vision for EU in 2030, and it's amazing. It's gonna be a circular transition where we reuse and repair and recycle more, so that is great. But there's one saying here in this strategy, and it says fast fashion is out of fashion, and that made me curious because what does it actually mean? And in our scenario building and in our thoughts about the future, I think it could mean different things. So we will come back to that a bit later. Because this is how it looks today. The current situation is that we actually consume 15 kilo per person and year. That's about roughly 45 garments each year per person. So that is a lot. But a study that looked a little bit more deeply on what would the consumption have to be like if we're going to be in line with the Paris Agreement actually says that we can only consume 5 new garments each year. So that is significantly less. So that gave me some ideas about how could the future evolve in different way. And I think it either needs to be really a slowdown of consumption patterns to less, or perhaps even there is an opportunity for us to even go faster so that we can have even more efficient recycling in order to perhaps not consume as much as today, but perhaps a little bit more than 5 new garments each year. So, but it makes them curious that like, what would a system look like if we would consume dramatically less, or perhaps if we would have actually functioning recycling system in a really, really efficient way? What would that mean? So a faster system than we are doing today. Okay. So how could the circular textile management system look like in 2035? Where I don't think it's interesting to have one scenario for the future, because there are so many uncertainties that may affect the future. So to be better prepared, it's actually better to think about, even now, different options. So in this EU project, we are actually looking at 4 different scenarios for the future, because we think we can learn more then on our options and how to best plan for what we wish for. And this is, of course, then the EU vision and the circular transformation. And as I said before, there are so many uncertainties that can affect the future. We have the new policies, and they can be implemented in so many different ways. And we have geopolitics. Will the markets be more global in the future, or will they be more local? We have production processes. They can be improved or even disrupted. We have technology. How fast will, for example, recycling technologies evolve, and how good will they be? And of course, the consumer behavior. Will we adapt to other consumer patterns, or will we not? And how forced will we be by the policy, perhaps? So we are working in this EU project with this scenario matrix. And I think this is interesting because here we are thinking about 4 options, 4 directions. Like, what if the world would be more, even more global, and these global markets will thrive, but perhaps the fashion circles will slow down. What would that mean? Or the opposite, if we will be really local but slower in the consumption loops, what would that mean? And what if we perhaps continue a little bit like today, and the global markets will continue to thrive as they do today, and consumption pattern will be faster or even more faster? What would that mean? Or what would it be if we would go into even more local markets, but perhaps speed up these circular loops? So we are playing around with these 4 directions of the future and how it could look like. And of course, there will only be one future in the end, but we can learn of thinking of these different directions and perhaps play around with our options in a better way. So I will talk a little bit more now about 3 examples and how they relate to these scenarios. I will talk a little bit about the involvement of sorting and sorting technology, a little bit of AI, how that can develop the AI, the reuse market, and an example where we can see about semi-automated repairs and how that can driven the market perhaps a little bit more of the local and the slow development. So we know one thing is for certain, even though we have different options of the future and we have these different directions where we might go, but one thing is certain, and that is that we're gonna have a digital shift in the textile industry. And we know that we will have a new regulation that is called the Digital Product Passport that will give us basically a digital infrastructure with harmonized circular data points. So actually, it means that we will hopefully have then information on each and every garment about how it could be repaired, how it could be reused, how it could be recycled. And we can also get this information in a digital way. And of course, this will build up the digital infrastructure that we need to build a circular value chain. So I'm going to talk a little bit about 3 examples and how they all relate to this policy and this digital infrastructure that we're now hopefully building up, and how these examples also fit into these different scenarios in the next statement. So this is what we're talking about when we talk about the digital infrastructure. We have some information now analog on standard tags on each and every garment. It could look like this, right? We know a little bit about composition, we know a little bit about how we wash them. And if you go to, of course, brands, they have even more information on a company level. But we would like to use this information. And if we want to scale circularity, we have to put it in a digital context. And imagine if this information actually was tagged into each and every garment on a digital label, then a lot of things can happen, and it opens up for scaling things in a new way. So, for example, when it comes to automated sorting, it can shift how we think about sorting of waste. Today, this industry is mainly sorting textile waste manually. But when this new legislation enters, roughly about 2026, and it takes a couple of years before it's in all the flows, and where you can see it actually in the market and in the industries. But also we have the other legislation about that we need to sort out more waste. So this means also that the waste actually will actually double in the future. So imagine then if we have also access to this digital product passport, we can actually sort, not manually anymore, we can sort based on data. And when we can sort based on data, we can sort more efficient, faster, and also more accurate. So that means when we can sort more accurate, we can also be much better at channeling these waste to recycling technologies like mechanical or chemical, because they need more information and the right material. They can't use, they need more information, otherwise they will not have the right materials to their technologies. So this digital information, digital infrastructure open up for this digital-based sorting industry, basically. Yes. So when we look then on what does this mean then for the future scenarios? Well, if we add also that we have this digital-based sorting, and we have this circular also data ponds that we can use about material composition, and also we have perhaps improved and more efficient recycling technologies. We have new material composition on new materials that is very suitable for recycling, and also we have green energy. Then actually it drives the future towards a very global markets and a very fast fashion still. So a little bit like today, but hopefully then in a much more sustainable way. But perhaps we won't see that much different from today if this plays out in the best possible way. Then we have the other example where we have AI-driven reuse market. And we can see even today that the reuse market has exploded during COVID. It has already increased and taking market shares from the traditional fashion industry. And several reports indicate that this market will continue to explode. And that is even before AI have really shift gears or pushed this development. But what research says is that AI or machine learning or the deep learning can even make this development explode really in the future by helping e-commerces, digital platforms make even more personalized recommendation. It can make processes more efficient and less time consuming. It can help them reverse logistics and value chain. It can help them with price optimization. Also, of course, sustainability analysis. And also if things needs to be sorted, it could also help out with that. So in this future, if AI is really exploding and evolving in the best way possible, we could, and also if we perhaps also add some green premiums, so this will be a really attractive option for consumers, we could end up in a future where perhaps not going to the global thriving markets, but we could have a really fast loops still with perhaps a lot of clothes in our wardrobes, but a little bit on more local markets. So when I say local here, we mean Europe, so quite large, but still in not the long distance and the global sense that we have today. So then we can see the development, if this pushes the development, going more to this direction. And then we have the last example, and that is the semi-automated repairs. So that means basically that that we're not exchanging humans for technology, but we are taking technology to help us be more efficient with a couple of steps. It could be, for example, with a machine that cuts out a zipper. That's it is the example here. Or a technology that helps us detect dimension on a zipper, or it could be that we just adjust new tools and a workstation that we can reduce the time for replacing a zipper compared to when we, as we do today, go to a human being that actually is doing the repair. So this development could actually open up the possibility for a market that is basically non-existing today, because when we say time, we can also make it more viable as a market. So it opens up for this potential. So here, if this plays out in a nice way, in the best possible way, it could drive the future for a more slow and a local development. And this could actually be a possible way of driving the market going further. Yes, at last, this is my last slide. It's not all about technology. It's basically always down to people and leadership. So just a reminder of this, that I think this was a great quote. Given the scale at which change is required to achieve a complete circular textile industry, technology achievements needs to be paralleled with a complete social evolution that includes all actors in a product life cycle. So we're always down to the right business models and the right viability to actually achieve an offering that also consumers would like to engage in. So I think I will stop there and stop sharing my slides.
Okay, thank you very much, Emma, for your valuable insights to this discussion. For the last segment of the day, I have been joined in the studio by Lisa Bour and also Åsa Degerman, who we met before. And Lisa, you are our Director of Materials and Production at RISE. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
We have just seen Emma predicting the future. Do you have any comments about that, Lisa?
Well, first of all, extremely difficult, I think, to predict the future, especially in the situation we're in now, where we have been used to a very global world, where we have worked with trade in the way that we've gotten used to, and now we see a bit of a shift. So I think that both economy-wise and on the global scale, it's really difficult, but really interesting to see the different perspectives and to think of different scenarios and where we could end up.
Yeah, and do you have any comments to the scenarios?
Yeah, I'm thinking of my world when it comes to textile recycling and what we need as a feedstock. And then I thought it was interesting to see how they predict when automatic sorting will actually be up and running, which is not before 2030. And that will actually have the impact if we don't have manually, or if we will need to have manually sorted textile, that will be very expensive for us and also for other textile recyclers.
Also, you have conducted, or Södra has conducted, or are conducting a resource project. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. Yeah, we had the honor to be granted nearly 8 million Swedish crowns from resources, and that was in the technique of further develop the screening and cleaning of textiles, meaning that we can actually take on more impurities and more contaminants when it comes to color, but also in terms of contaminants in elastan, etc. So I think that is for us actually absolutely critical in order to take the next step and to scale up and take on a broader specification of textile waste. Yeah, we continue with the resource project for at least, I think, 2 years, and then we can conclude and we can get the learnings into the large-scale plant we're planning for 2027.
That will be interesting. Then we will have you back. Lisa, I mean, you are more of an expert on the coming legislation, and can they support Södra as a company when they need more material?
We've talked about sorting, and definitely sorting of textile materials will be crucial and a key enabling technology to actually help us scale, because we will have access to larger volumes, also perhaps then a bit lower quality than we have today, and we need to know what it actually is that we put in our processes. So under the ESPR, the Eco Design for Sustainable Products regulation, we all know that we have the digital product passport also coming out, and I think what's important now is to make sure that it doesn't take too long for the DPP to also be what we want it to be, to have enough information so that we can actually make use of it to sort, just as we saw in an earlier presentation from Emma, that if we can sort on data, then of course all kinds of doors open, both to volumes but also to high quality output in different recycling processes.
And do you have an idea on when is this actually coming to us? I mean, textiles is quite in the front runners of the industries, but when is it a fact?
It's from 2025, but of course this could be a pushed timeline possibly, but with a sort of a period to get into compliance with it until 2027, but then that's for the first product categories, because then of course other product categories will come in later, but we all know now that textiles will be one of the first ones.
Do you have any advice for the companies facing all of these new legislations that are coming more of an avalanche style right now?
Yes, I would say to be prepared, to be proactive, to understand what the legislation actually says, and if there's a possibility to interact and to get involved and to give input, and to do that, because it will be extremely important that this is correct from the beginning. And I know that Södra has done this, so you know, and I think that's one of the most important things, to know what it is and to start preparing for it.
Do we see any use? I mean, the digital passport is of course a digitalization process, but what about the robotisering and the AI, for instance? Can we make use of those tools as well?
Yes, absolutely. For AI, for example, I think that is also a very important technology to make use of for sorting, because there's a bit of the process is a bit slow. Materials are staying out for sometimes many years, sometimes not so many years, but I think we will need to look at different technologies. So AI is one, near infrared is another. So definitely AI will be an important tool. We talked about robotization, and I think also there, because if we look at how we actually then handle and guide our materials, then robotization will be important for that, but also perhaps for automated repair and other things. So definitely also a very important technology to look at even more intensely.
Yeah. Also, we often discuss about the customers' priorities, but also the companies putting products on the market. I mean, where should both go towards a less of fast fashion, or is it the companies' priorities, or is it the customers who should change? Do you have any opinion on that? Because I mean, you give a better material than what we are used to.
No, I don't think we can put everything on the consumer. I think it's good what the textile strategy and the vision for 2030, that they actually understand that it's a whole ecosystem that needs to come together. They have pointed out in the legislation also about green claims, etc., to educate the consumer and also to be more tentative what's actually going on. And I think that's one part, that we can educate the consumers. But I think it's us and it's many parts of the society that need to take the leadership and guide to make the shift. It could be influencers, it could be political instruments, etc. But I think the textile strategy is setting out the vision, and then there are many stakeholders that need to take responsibility and accountability. And consumers, yes, they should be more enlightened and more educated. But of course, fashion is fashion. So someone has to also the responsibility to tell them what's good and what's bad.
Thank you. And Lisa, we as RISE, we are a part of a lot of large research projects. Can you give us any insight to what is coming from them? Is it new recycling technology, or what is the major findings there?
Oh yes, it's a lot of things, and I think that we've heard about some of them today as well, but it could be things such as, for example, favorite wardrobe, which we heard about, where we can see how we best make use of the things that we actually have, and to understand more about how we actually use them. We may think we do it in a certain way, but that may not be true. But we are also looking in larger horizon projects at the moment, actually, together with Södra, where we are looking at tools with the basis in both data and AI, I would say, but also near infrared, on how to prioritize data, how to guide materials through the value chain to the correct recycling technology, to reuse, if reuse is a good option for this specific item. So we're trying to also work with making use of the legislation that we know is coming.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to that. Thank you very much, Lisa and Åsa, for joining me here in the studio. And thank you to all of our audience for today, and good luck with the rest of the program in Reykjavik and online. Thank you for today.